My name is Aaron Ladd, host of the Chief Squad Show. And if you tuned in for stripes and zebras, you got exactly what you were hoping for. We break down the penalty problems coming up in this episode of the Locked On Chief Squad Show.
And I'm your guy, JC Pearson. And coming off of a bye week, man, I was expecting so much more today.
I'm Chris Clark, and yeah, the offense was definitely a letdown. A couple of players that really need to step up going forward.
And I'm Darren Smith. I'm going to keep it real. This is not a good well-coached football team.
Chiefs Kingdom, stand up. It's the Chiefs Squad. Everything Kansas City Chiefs every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from Arrowhead Stadium, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Squad up. The Chiefs Squad Show starts now.
Appreciate you joining us here on the Locked On Chiefs Squad Show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs fall to 5-5 after a 22-19 defeat at the hands of Bo Nix in the Denver Broncos. We break down all the penalty problems on both sides of the ball because there was plenty of laundry on the field in this one. An offensive letdown is what I titled the second one because Patrick Mahomes and company had two chances to put this one away late in the fourth quarter and couldn't do so. And part of that was set up behind another blunder on special teams. What's going wrong with Dave Toub's unit this year for Kansas City? Finally, is there a way for Kansas City to find their way into the playoffs? We discussed that and more in our final segment. We appreciate you everydayers for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, hit the hype button, anything you can do to make this channel go and grow. We will appreciate it. We got some comments in here already. And let's just get off and running. Total of 20 penalties between the two teams in this one, 10 for each side. It seemed like every time Kansas City wanted to get ahead or had an opportunity to get some momentum in this one, there was more laundry on the field. JC, we'll start with you on this one. What was the major issue with the penalties, especially coming out of the bye, as you mentioned?
Yeah, exactly. A lot of times when you have that many penalties, it's just a lack of focus, to be honest with you. I mean, because those are all, whether they're effort penalties, mental penalties, whatever, it's just a lack of focus. And coming out of a bye week, we talked about it last week, they should be rejuvenated. They should be fresh. They should be mentally ready to go. They know how big of a game this was. And, really, just no excuse for it, man. And just way too many of them. And it really cost them. Took points off away from them when, backed them out of scoring position. And, it just really made it tough for them. And too bad, unfortunate.
Darren, we talked about on the intro, those two drives that Kansas City's offense had to try and put the game away. One of those, the second to last one, was kicked off with a penalty, which really was kind of emblematic to me of what happened. What do you make of all the penalties for Kansas City in this one against the Denver Broncos?
Well, that's it. Coming into the show, I just don't think that they're being coached very well. And, for me, everything is always about situational football. And you have to sometimes adjust to how the game is going. Look, the penalties are one thing, but, sometimes they like to get away from running the football. I thought they had some effective drives where they were running the football. And then, obviously, next thing you know, Patrick Mahomes is dropping back, or they get a penalty that pushes them back, 10 yards or something like that. And then next thing you know, they have to throw the football, and they keep putting themselves in situations where, Patrick is forced to throw the football instead of them just, let's put it like this. The offense never really looked like it was flowing most of the game, which is how we end up with essentially both teams had the ball for about 30 minutes apiece, but there was never, Denver was never in any real position to put a lot of points on the board. They finished with 5 field goals for the day. They had the early touchdown early in the game, and that was about it.
I think when you look at this, the big thing to me is 76% of the time you're throwing the ball in this game, Patrick Mahomes drops back and throws the ball 45 times. And actually it was more than that because that's how many dropbacks he had. That doesn't count the sacks. So he had 3 more plays than that that were passing plays. You have to be able to effectively run the ball. You have Kareem Hunt, who's been playing fantastic in short yardage situations, 17 for 19 on 3rd and 1 or third and short, and you don't give him the ball on a 3rd and short I think that was early in the first half. Taking points off the board potentially there. And we'll talk about penalties, but Jawan Taylor in his lining up cost him what wasn't going to be a first and goal necessarily, but they're really close to the goal line. I think they get 8 yards on that play, and it goes to 1st and 15, and then they just can't do anything.
Chris, you said it. Thank you. I'm so glad it was somebody else. It wasn't me that mentioned it first. You have to be able to efficiently run the football. And this is what I said coming into the game. And y'all called me everything but a child of God in the last episode.
I said, what are you talking about?
I said, KC is going to turn one-dimensional. I said, if they can't figure out a way to run the ball consistently, you're going to allow that Denver pass rush to pin their ears back, and it's going to cause problems on the line. And that's what I think happened in a lot of these penalties. We're talking about penalties in this first intro. When you're in those obvious passing downs where you're down, you're trying to score, or it was tied for so long, and Patrick Mahomes is back there.
We had to
field, and it just was an issue. It was Go ahead, Darren.
No.
You froze.
You froze up. Your dial froze up on us. So I was about to.
But you know what? I don't think it's a fact of they can't run the ball efficiently. They just don't choose to do it enough. And then once you start getting all those penalties and you get behind the chains, like we talked about, against a team like Denver, you can't get behind the chains because now they're going to pin their ears back and get after you. So, once you start getting those penalties and you get behind the chains, that essentially makes you one-dimensional. You're not going to run the ball in those situations. They did try to run some screens, some middle screens, but, there was just no rhyme or reason or rhythm to this offense. And, just trying to drop back and he is not an offense. That's essentially that's a Hail Mary. They hit one to Taekwon, but you can't count on that kind of stuff, man. There really was just no rhythm to this offense.
The one thing I will say, I was just going to say really quick, JC, I completely agree with you. You have to be efficient. You have to run the ball on a regular basis. But the other problem is they've become predictable to an extent. You talk about running the middle screens. Denver was all over them every time they ran a screen. Like they were successful early in the game getting the ball out to Rice on the boundary. But you talk about middle screens, Denver was all over it, and it made the game very hard. Andy Reid needs to figure out how to disguise things better and how to be less predictable, because from a guy that has been very good at play calling for years, that has changed this year, and it's cost them. And their penalties are getting them in bad situations where they just can't get out of it.
And the biggest thing with these penalties is that it's really hard in real time, to try to coach or get these players out of it to quit. Unless you got Travis Kelce headbutting Jawan Taylor to quit moving off sides or quit lining up off sides or holding or something like that. It's really hard in real time, for the team and for these players to quit fouling up. And look, and as much as I hate to say it, Bill Parcells said it best: "You are what your record said you are." This is an average football team. This Chiefs team this year, and Denver just a well coached. I mean, they were a better football team, which is interesting because again, they had to make certain adjustments because they were without J.K. Dobbins and they were without Patrick Surtain, and yet they still were able to hold the Chiefs to 19 points.
Darren, you said the Chiefs are not a well coached team. Why was that obvious to you in this one?
Well, one, the penalties. Those penalties too. Again, Andy talked about it leading up to the game. Even talked about it at halftime about trying to run the football. They only ran it 14 times, 13 times was with Kareem. I think Patrick may have ran the ball once. That was it. And so now, how much of that was due to the penalties, to where you keep putting yourself back an additional 5 or 10 yards? Played a role in the play calling of the run game. But again, there was never any real balance. There was never any real flow of the offense. And then, as you talked about the last 2 drives, it was just kind of haphazard. They were just trying to throw something out there against the wall and see what stuck. So to me, I just and look, I get ragged on about this all the time. every time they win the coin toss, they always elect to defer. That's their big thing. I went back and forth with Andy years ago when they were in Tennessee, when they fell to 3-4 that year, and they had to have a whole players only meeting. My thing is sometimes and I think somebody mentioned it earlier, to where if you have a tendency, the opponent kind of knows your tendencies as well. So if every time that you always defer, if you saw, I think the Broncos ended up scoring before the half, before the Chiefs did, and the Chiefs didn't get a score coming out the break and going into the break. So to me, sometimes you got to switch things up so the opponent doesn't realize, get too comfortable. Because again, when they come home next week, if they win the coin toss, they'll defer, and then we see how the Colts are. You might find yourself down 7-0, and then you always find yourself scrapping, trying to take the lead, trying to win, versus you imposing your will on the opponent to start the game off. And so from time to time they can do stuff like that, but they get too comfortable. And I get it. They've been in 5 Super Bowls and they won 3. He's got that luxury, but sometimes your tendencies have a tell that the opponent capitalizes on it.
And what kind of statement does it make if they go out and they try to go on offense first if they win versus that Denver defense? That to me comes out, you're not scared of their defense.
I don't think the offense is consistent enough to go out there and say, hey, we want the ball first and we're going to score. They're an offense that needs to kind of warm up a little bit. They're a defense first led team. And then they have that opportunity for the double dip, which was crucial in this one and I texted this in the group chat. Why not take that time out on the 4th and short where Denver was going to have to punt and have a little bit more opportunity for your offense to even get 3 off Harrison Butker's leg in the altitude, and then coming out of halftime? It was just a critical, and maybe that is to your coaching point, to where it was just game management, little things in these 1-score games. We talked about this in the lead-in. Kansas City 0 for 5 in 1-score games, where they were so dominant in 1-score games the year before. Those game management and coaching points, that's how you navigate and win those. JC, hop in on this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I can't ride with that, because you talking about Andy Reid, and when they're winning, he's one of the greatest coaches ever. He's a Hall of Fame coach and all those things, and then now all of a sudden he hasn't forgotten how to coach. So it's easy to nitpick. Hindsight is 20/20. The bottom line is they're just not getting it done.
That's what I'm saying. That's coaching.
You can coach the guys that you have. You're not playing, but when they're out there playing and winning Super Bowls, you got no issues with that, right? With the coach, it still comes down to the guys on the field, and they're not making plays. And we talked a few weeks ago when things were going well and this offense was rolling. Oh man, they got weapons everywhere. Look at all the weapons they have. They got all these receivers, they got these running backs, they got these tight ends. But where are they? Now when it's tough, the guys aren't making plays. Where are they? So if you have all these weapons, why aren't they being productive? And not to pick on Xavier Worthy, not to pick on him, but he's supposedly the fastest man in the NFL, right? He ran the fastest 40 in the history. Tyreek ran 4.3 something, wasn't the fastest ever, but was fast. But you can't tell me that Tyreek is his explosiveness and his playmaking ability was 10 times more than what Xavier's is. Now, obviously 2 different players, but you drafted him for his speed to try to mimic Tyreek, but he's not making any kind of explosive plays. Now all of a sudden Tyquan Thornton's your deep threat, and Rashid was supposed to be this, top 5 receiver in the league. And, when he came back, he was making plays and, everybody's singing his praises. But if you're that guy, you got to be that guy every week, regardless of who you line up against, who you're playing against. He didn't play well today. Now, and I mentioned during the broadcast, me and my daughter were watching right before the halftime. He's sitting, they showed a picture of him on the bench, and he's sitting there, and he looks like he's bored to death and uninterested. And then he comes back that next series and he drops the ball on the sideline. Pat throws the ball, scrambles around, throws the ball down the field. and he drops it in his hands. And if he catches that ball, they get points out of that drive, or at least attempt a field goal out of that drive.
You talking about Rashee Rice?
Rashee Rice, yes.
Yep.
You got to make those plays when they're there if you're supposed to be that guy. And we've been talking about, how great this guy is and all that. You can't have up and down. You know, when you're supposed to be that guy, you got to make those plays. That ball hit him square in both of his hands, not one, both of them.
Final thoughts on this first segment before we head to break. We got to head to break, but final thoughts here.
No, I was going to say, I was smiling because everything Jason's talking about, I thought that was going to be like for the next segment about the offense I was going to talk about. But no, I know. Look, I still think the penalties are a big issue, and I still think that comes down to coaching. Again, we talked about it before. It's either you're coaching or you're allowing it. Look, they had 13 penalties against Jacksonville, and then the very next week didn't have any. So, I mean, why the inconsistency, which is a big concern for me.
This Chiefs offense has been up and down. Chris, I'll get to you on the other side of this break. We're talking about the up and down offense for Kansas City, which let them down in this 22-19 loss. We're breaking it down here on the Chiefs Squad Show, Locked On Podcast Network. We'll rejoin you right after this. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, no hidden fees, no BS. I said yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same number and contacts. The setup is super easy. You keep your number, and then you're running within minutes. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Upfront payment of $45 is required. Limited time new customer offer for just 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on the unlimited plan. Taxes and fees are extra. See Mint Mobile for details. We are back in on the Chiefs Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network. Aaron Ladd, JC Pearson, Darren Smith, and Chris Clark breaking down another Chiefs loss. They fall to 5-5. I talked about this earlier, the offensive letdown. 2 opportunities for them to put this game away late in the fourth quarter. Kansas City has the ball 19-16, and they go 3 and out in their own part of the field, and then they have the ball 19-19 and are unable to get in field goal range for Harrison Butker. And then the Broncos do exactly that. They get a 35-yarder from Will Lutz, 22-19, the final. Chris, I'll give you the ball first after this one. It seems like these were the games, these were the opportunities where Patrick Mahomes and the offense make the most of it. And then this year, it's just been a different story.
It has been. And, we talk about the letdown in the fourth quarter. They had time of possession of 1:41 in the next to last drive and 1:11 in the last drive. They had a 5-yard penalty in the second to last drive, got 13 yards total. And they got a negative 11 yards because of the sack in this last drive. I mean, you cannot have an offense come and play that bad in those situations, not even get a first down, like not even get the ball moving at all and feel like you're going to win against a good team like the Broncos. And the Broncos are a good team. They've continuously scored more points in the fourth quarter than just about anybody else in the NFL. They lead in that category. And you cannot give them a situation where you're going to give them the ball back and have a chance to win. We can talk about the letdown on defense later, but situationally, you have to at least get a first down. That's all it comes down to. You have to move the ball. You have to get at least a first down, especially give your defense a little bit of rest so they can come out a little bit fresher against this Denver Broncos team.
Yeah, I got the drive information right here. Kansas City starts on their own 12 with 8:11 left in the fourth quarter. 3 plays, 8 yards, punt. Then they get the ball back with 4 minutes and 10 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter. 3 plays, negative 11 yards, and a punt again. And that's all she wrote. Darren Smith, is that coaching or is that execution?
Both. 2 things can be true on that. I'm sitting there looking at the stat sheet and stuff like that. 2 things are coming across from what I saw in the game. One, and this has been an ongoing deal with Patrick over the last couple of seasons, that for whatever reason, he and his wide receiver, especially when it comes to the deep ball, he's either very inaccurate where the ball is up out of bounds or he overthrows the receiver. And to JC's point earlier, if if Xavier Worthy's running a 4.21, there's no way, because it never really happened, and I don't. It may have happened only one time where Patrick overthrew Tyreek Hill. He should not be for whatever reason. He should not be able to overthrow Xavier Worthy if Xavier Worthy is running at full speed, and that's an issue within itself. And then also, I know that we joked about, at least I joked about, they have so many weapons that they spread it around. Now I'm starting to think that maybe they need to limit the amount of players that they're actually having on offense, so you can have a little bit more consistency, at least a rotation. I mean, when I'm looking at it, I think Patrick threw to 10 or 10 different receivers in today's game, but Elijah Mitchell, Robert Tonyan, Rashard Smith, I mean, they didn't really contribute anything. They were just target, more or less. And so when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, okay, you just need to keep it Kelsey, Gray, Thornton, Brown, Rice, and if he comes in, of course, Juju, instead of just being a decoy. So my thing is, when I look at it, there's not, and we've talked about it, there's not enough flow in the offense because you're always rotating players, and so nobody ever really gets in a good rhythm to try to get any momentum.
I think very rarely is Patrick going through his progressions, unless he's running around scrambling, then he's just looking for somebody, scramble drill to get open. Very rarely, or I would say too many times, it seems like he's dropping back and it's predetermined where he's throwing the ball. And, sometimes he's throwing it to Travis. Travis doesn't even know the ball's supposed to come to him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Travis is staying in the block, so I'm not sure that for whatever reason, he's not really going through his progressions and finding the open guy timing wise. He's just looking for a way to run around and then look down the field and then see who's open and then throw the ball. If he is throwing it on time, a lot of times it's a screen or, it's just a quick curl or something like that. And, I think that's why you see these guys getting one or two catches or whatever, because, I think a lot of it in his mind is predetermined where he's going.
I completely agree with that. You look at this, and what was it, late in the first half or early in the second, they came in and they talked on the show, on the game. Tony Romo said that Mahomes had threw the ball like 2.1 seconds, like the fastest that he has ever thrown the ball. And that's a situation where where you're going with the ball pre-snap, and you're just basically looking at your first read and you're throwing the ball. And that's okay for the most part. Like, I don't have a problem with that against his defense to an extent. But when you get later in the game and you get to a point where you've seen what this defense is going to do, you have to have a little bit more where you're going to your next read, because the defense is going to know, okay, wait, he's getting rid of the ball so quickly, we can drop an extra guy and maybe make a throw harder for him. So to me, I completely agree. I think that him not going through his reads at times has been a problem. But then there's other times where he's out there on the field running around and he should have thrown the ball away. So it's a double-edged sword. I mean, there was a couple of times his sacks where he needs to throw the ball away. You can't take the sacks there. You see it coming, throw the ball away.
At a couple points where we're having a Mahomes conversation talking about offensive letdown. I don't want to get lost in this. That they had a 9.5-minute drive, second longest drive of his career, that resulted in a field goal. Then on the other side of that coin, he throws the questionable head-scratching red zone interception that takes points off the board. I think ultimately what I come back to is they're asking him to do way too much. He's having to do everything offensively because there isn't an efficient run game. And y'all can stamp the bingo card. Y'all can say what y'all want to about me screaming from the – but at a certain point, it can't be by choice, Darren. At a certain point, you have to be able to line the ball up and run and take some pressure off Mahomes' plate. It can't be like, we have the best quarterback in the league. We're going to let him cook for I don't want to say this. I say this tongue in cheek. He's not Jacoby Brissett. He's not going to go out there and complete 47 passes in a game. You got to balance out the offense a little bit, my boy.
No, Aaron, what I'm saying is, man, again, I think I'm joking, but Andy has a history of not liking to run the football. again, you have to damn near waterboard the man to run the
Okay,
football.
but that's not working this year. It's not working this year. Just like you were saying about trends and them deferring and they have a certain way that they do things. You got to adapt. You're 5-5.
Aaron, they talked about on the broadcast, talking to Andy coming to the game, that even he said they should have ran the football more against Buffalo in that game, and they didn't, and they wasn't consistent with it. That's what he said, not me. That's what he said. He echoed what I've been saying is that you have to give the run game a chance to. Again, those 2 wins against JV teams that you like to call them, the Raiders and the Commanders, you know what I'm saying, where they ran the ball about 30 times and got 150 yards running the football. You kept the other team on the again. Those weren't even good teams that they beat, but they kept them on the sidelines. That they controlled the clock.
So why can't they do that against good teams?
They go away from it way too quickly. Again, they didn't even try to run the football enough against the Buffalo Bills. So I mean, now you're asking me to speak and think for why they're not doing it, when I'm telling you that's what they should be doing. You again, running the football.
I don't think it's a would should. I think it's a cannot.
Well, you know what? We won't know if you don't try, right?
I'm here. JC, okay. Chris, anything on that?
The interesting thing on those last 2 drives, Kareem, the first play on the next to last drive, Noah Gray gets a false start penalty. You end up going from 1st and 10 to 1st and 15. Now, maybe you were going to run the ball in that drive, but when you're 1st and 15, you're probably not going to be running. You end up running 3 pass plays, don't get any yards, and you have to punt the ball away. The next drive, you come out and all you do is throw, and Mahomes gets sacked on 3rd down. Like, when you're talking about winning the game, I understand you want to be aggressive, you want to try to win the game, but you also have to look at it from the perspective of, okay, we did a 9-minute drive earlier. We got a field goal out of it. A 9-minute drive would have ended the game. Think about that. They got the ball back with what? You said 8 minutes, Aaron, I think you said earlier. They got the ball back for the next to last drive with like 8 minutes left. They do anything that construes a 7-minute drive, 7.5-minute drive. That ball game's pretty much over, and it doesn't matter if they kick a field goal or score a touchdown because there's not going to be any time left. They had the opportunity to win this one. They didn't run the ball. They couldn't be effective at the very end. And you come out and you just throw. And they're just not consistent. And the only guy that really showed up when it came to pass catchers is Travis Kelce. You talked about Rashee Rice earlier. 6 catches, 38 yards. For a number 1 guy that a lot of people will say is probably easily a top 10, if not top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, he didn't play like it today.
No, and I think part of the problem is not only, Andy's not a big running game guy. BYU, obviously, they don't run the ball a lot, they throw. But coming from there, but then now the success that they've had over the years with Patrick, and Patrick being that guy now. So when the game is on the line, like Chris was saying, it's, the last 2 drives, am I going to put it in Kareem's hand or am I going to put it in Patrick's hand? We've seen Patrick over the years make play after play after play, and now it could be coming back to bite him and haunt him. But again, you don't like to run the ball anyway. You got this guy that, has made all kinds of crazy plays for you in the past and pulled games out for you and just made plays. Am I going to put it in his hands again? Probably so. It didn't work out, and it hasn't been working out this year. But in the past, it worked out more so than not. And, for some reason, it's not working out as much this year. But that's what it's going to be, Aaron. I hate to be that guy to break it to you again, but I mean, they're not going to run the ball much, and especially now when they feel like they have to win, they're going to leave it in Pat's hands.
JC, let me jump in. So again, I go back to situational football, which to me always goes back to coaching. Again, it doesn't have to be the last drive of the last quarter where you're trying to win the game. You can try to win the game in the first half, again, by as Chris was talking about, protecting your defense. Again, when all you're doing is throwing, and those passes drop or they're incomplete passes, that's stopping the clock. At least, at least when you run the football, you can take that whole 40 seconds before that next snap. Allow the clock to be your friend. Now,
no question. And I'm not saying that what they did was right, obviously, but I'm saying the logic behind it, and seeing what they did. And again, are you going to leave it in Patrick's hands, or are you going, like Chris said, on first down, they may have run the ball, but they got a penalty. So after that, boom, we're not even looking at that side of the play card anymore. We're trying to now, how can we get some chunks of yards? And the way that they've gotten chunks of yards and always in the past has been 15 somehow. And, so they're going to leave it in his hands, and it just hasn't been working this year.
Offense, defense, and special team each holding part of the blame in this 22-19 loss for the Chiefs against the Denver Broncos. We will break down the special teams miscues on the other side of this break. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We are back in on the Chief Squad Show. You don't want any part of that?
Man, I can read a promo too, man. They pay me that big money. They paying you to read it.
No.
You see, I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared. I was like, hey, give me the script.
The Chiefs special teams not the only ones having miscues on this Sunday. It was and when this happened, right? The Chiefs go up, they score the touchdown. I'm scrambling for it. It was a Travis yard catch and run that sends him into the history books. Want to make sure to congratulate him on this one. It was a loss for Kansas City, but Travis Kelce does set the record for most touchdowns in franchise history with 84. I believe he passed Priest Holmes. But then as we're celebrating, Travis Kelce's, hyping up the crowd, letting them know I heard you. Here comes the classic special teams letdown as Harrison Butker's point after attempt is blocked, which leaves at that critical 3-point margin. I think everybody knew at that point in time that it possibly could come back to haunt, and that's exactly Darren, go ahead and lead us off on this one. Are you firing Dave Tobe as well when you say this team is poorly coached?
Nah, I'd have to go back and look at that particular sequence for that. Look, when it was blocked, I said to myself, it's going to come down to a field goal because, again, obviously if they make the kick, Denver has to score a touchdown, or at least get enough possessions to kick 2 field goals or something, try to win the ball game. I mean, it was just a bad situation where, I thought early on when they were kicking field goals against each other and he made the first 2, I thought that he was I thought if it would have come down to him kicking a game-winning field goal at the end, I felt confident enough that Harrison would succeed in it because I think he's been doing well these last few games. The block kick, I'm not gonna blame it on Harrison. I think it was more so someone got through and was able to block the kick. But for once, I can't put the blame on Harrison because I think he did fine. It was just somebody just missed their man and saw what happened.
Is that coaching though?
Yeah, it's definitely coaching.
Okay.
But I didn't.
You got to be consistent.
No. Hold on. You asked me, was I going to fire Dave Tobe? I'm not firing the man. I'm not firing Andy. I'm just saying you got to do a better job coaching.
Yeah.
Looked like to me that was Wanya Morris that got beat on that play. But you talk about special teams, and it wasn't just that. It was the block in the back when you're early in the game. You're sitting there. And you go and you block like stupid penalties, like stupid special teams penalties. You have that one where it cost you an extra 10 yards on a huge return. And not only that, but you let the large return to begin with. And there were several of them that could have been large returns. And then you also look at Harrison Butker kicking the ball short and getting a penalty on that too. Putting your defense in a bad spot because you're giving the ball at the 40. Sorry, JC.
We talked about this
all over.
Yeah, we talked about this in last week's episode. Who needs to step up? Who can step up more? I tried to spotlight the special teams unit as a whole, the return game. What can we get there? The game is played in 3 phases. We've been spending so much time and attention on offense and defense, but special teams has to help out at some point in time. When you have these one-score games, these tight margin games, every inch matters in that special teams. It just feels like Kansas City has not had a positive play on special teams in a very long time. Kicking game aside, yes, that's been up and down, but the return game really hasn't offered anything. And then when you needed it most in a critical division game, you get the blocked field goal that keeps Denver in it. Who knows how this game ends if it's a 4-point game versus a 3-point game down the line. I don't know if there's much more left there if anybody wants to talk about special teams.
Well, I mean, that's all stuff that has to be coached as well. Because first of all, the block you talked about, Wanye got beat there, but you have to know that that's their field goal block specialist, the 6'7" guy, and that has to be talked about in the meeting. This is the guy that you can't let get any penetration. You can't let him get his arms up because he's 6'7" to start with. He's their guy. So not only does he get penetration on Wanye, but now he's able to get that right arm up and he blocks the kick. The special teams penalties, again, that has to, not only special teams penalties, but all the penalties, there has to start being some repercussions, whatever it is, because we've been through emphasize it, talk to the guys about it. We thought they had it solved after the no penalty game. But again, there has to be some kind of repercussions. And, I'm really anxious to see how they come out next week, because we talked about how important this game was. And it's a must win, et cetera, et cetera. What happens if they don't win? What is their mentality? I'm anxious to see how they are at practice this week, Darren, them being the coaches, how hard they are on these guys, and they should be. And then how these guys respond next weekend, how they respond all week and next weekend. Because, a lot of these penalties, like I said, are just a lack of focus. It's not an effort thing. It's not a talent thing. I think it's a lack of focus.
At this point, the division crown is gone, and you're fighting for your playoff life. I know leading into this last week or this Denver game, we were talking about, rally around, trying to hold the crown, and you win 8 in a row, win 9 in a row, a lot of pride in that. That's gone. Now, what's the new motivator, Darren, Chris? What do you lean on? Hey, if we want to make the playoffs, we need to start firing it up now. I mean, Indy's coming in, and
their motto should be focus on the game ahead. On the Indianapolis or Arrowhead, take it on, because first of all, I don't want to say that the division's out of whack, but let's just focus on beating Indianapolis first, because right now, you can barely beat the hay in the barn right now. So I would just focus on the Colts, and not even think about what's going on in the rest of the division right now, because you need to worry about what's in front of you, because obviously. Coming out of the bye week, Patrick talked about how important it was, and he said, like me, he said it's a must-win game, and then you come out there and you play essentially the same way you played against Buffalo. So, I'm wondering, to me, I'm sitting thinking while JC was talking, what type of halftime adjustments or conversations was going on in the locker room at halftime with Andy and the players? I mean, what did he, I'm wondering, what did he say to the players, at the half, and, and then how they came out and played the second half? I'm just curious.
Travis played much better in the second half. It was clear that there was an emphasis to get him the ball more and get him more touches.
Yeah, I think early on we saw him get chippy with somebody, and I don't know if the deep back fell on his face or something, or said something about Taylor Swift or something, but he
well, you got to go there, man.
Hey, Travis was playing inspired football, man. I mean, and that's what it took to get him going. So
I think it's clearly we've talked about on this platform before. Who's going to be that third pass catcher? Can we come out of this game with an emergence of a third pass catcher? It's Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce that's going to be guaranteed. Lock them into your lineups. Those are the guys that are going to get their share of the offense.
Well, okay, but here's the thing. I mean, Patrick threw the ball down the field a few times, and he either overthrew him or threw the ball out of bounds. So, I mean, obviously, if he's connecting with the receivers, then we're having a different conversation because he overthrew Tyquan, he overthrew Worthy, he overthrew Rice a few times. So, I mean, you know, if
the overthrows, I don't put too much into that because I'd rather it be overthrown than underthrown, especially on a deep ball.
No, I get it, but I'm saying, but you at least want to be close to the receiver where they have a chance to catch it.
Yeah, I mean it's hard, and I would think that the third wide receiver needs to be Xavier Worthy, but he hasn't been able to catch the deep ball for Mahomes, and the guy that does seem to be able to be on the same page with Mahomes at times on the deep balls is Tyquan Thornton, and you're not using him. And let's not forget, like, there were times this season where when Rashee Rice wasn't playing, one of the best players, and I say that a little bit facetiously, but one of the guys that was producing on the field at least was Juju Smith-Schuster, and you haven't really done anything with him other than ask him to be a blocker lately. I don't understand why you're looking at this offense and going, okay, well, it needs to be Xavier Worthy. Use Juju. He can do a lot of the same things that Rice can and change kind of where you have to attack on the field. I think that they have the weapons. They just need to get better at using them and more effective. And I don't know how they're going to do that going forward.
Coaching.
Yeah.
There you go. Back to coaching, putting players in position.
Yeah,
again, if everybody got to eat.
We need a consistent chain mover, a guy that can run crisp routes and catch the ball. We just can't run, deep routes and screens, right? We gotta have guys that can work the middle of the field, guys that can get in and out of cuts, guys that can move the chains. Juju was that guy for a while, but the problem is the quarterback. I'm sure Mahomes is not that kind of quarterback, though. That's a drop back timing type of quarterback. So, he's not going to just let the ball go 1, 2, 3, let it go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let the ball go consistently. He may do it a couple times during the game, but as soon as he starts feeling any kind of heat, he's looking for a lane. And now let me look around. And by that time,
he's not even doing that.
By that time, the defensive back has recovered. So now it's just a scramble drill. Guys are just running all over the place looking for an open spot. So it's hard, but yeah, they need a consistent chain mover and not just a deep threat, a guy that's gonna, go.
That's supposed to be Rice.
Well,
I think it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and but yeah.
It sounds like what I'm hearing from y'all is success has kind of hampered some of the innovation in this offense. And previously we've talked about, the Ferrari red package and the snow globe and some of the creative ways they found ways to get their playmakers involved and create space in this offense. We haven't seen a lot of that creativity. And I'll call for it again in the run game. If we're not going to run it consistently through the tackles, maybe we can find ways to make the short pass a version of the run game. But it sounds like the success, what I'm hearing from y'all, and this is also things I've seen in the comments and on social media, they've been so successful playing this one type of way, and they've won these one-score games specifically in one style, that now that they're not having success with that style and these are leading to L's, that they're kind of scrambling again and find ways to get innovative and find creativity offensively. Darren?
Well, they also had, different players at times too, when you look at, the players who they had on the team last year versus this year, especially with the injuries and stuff. Again, I fall back to coaching because when we talked about over the summer how, the players talked about how this offense was going to look, once they got everybody back on the field, Rashee with the suspension and everybody healthy, and what, and we saw for a few games what this offense had the potential of being. Somehow, some way, from the Washington Commanders game to Buffalo and following the bye week to today's game, the offense somehow, had his powers taken like Space Jam. It just seemed like they left their powers. I mean, they touched the football, and all their special powers just warped away out of it. And again, and it goes down to coaching, because you still have to put your players in certain situations to make plays. And we talk about Juju again, Tyquan. I mean, we saw what Tyquan was doing while Rashid Rice was suspended. I mean, you have to be able to if you're going to rotate these players and put them in, give them real opportunities to make plays, and just don't, like you said, using Juju today as a blocker, as a decoy, more or less. Like you could have had him as a healthy scratch or whatever if you weren't going to really utilize him in the offense or whatever. And so that's why I kind of go back to when I look at the stat sheet, like, okay, you threw the 10 different receivers, 4 of them were running backs. You didn't really need any of them besides Kareem Hunt. So you could have saved 3 of those, you could have saved 3 of those players from even playing in the game. And then you didn't even utilize Juju. So I'm saying there's, sometimes having as many weapons as we have can be a blessing and a curse. And I think now when you look at it, especially with the weather about to start changing, stuff like that, you might want to try to get a set rotation of players that you're going to utilize versus just trying to be cute and just have all these players coming in and out of the game, and there's no real rhyme or rhythm to the offense or the players themselves, because they can't get in the rhythm either. That's something we really haven't talked about.
I think the other thing when you look at this is you're putting 13 targets on Travis Kelce. The guy that, what is he, 36 years old? You're giving him 13 targets in a game where you're going up against the number 1 defense in the NFL, and he is the guy that is going to be leading your offense. Like, I'm okay. And to be clear, I don't even think he had a target in the first half. Like, that was all pretty much in the second half. He didn't do anything until the second half of the game, and he still ended up with 13 targets. And don't get me wrong, he looks great, but you can't. But I guess where I'm going with that is you can't expect him to play that many snaps and continuously be able to bail this offense out and help them, especially if you are able to make the playoffs, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Having him healthy and having him, being sprightly, as Tony Romo liked to use today in the playoffs, is going to be a big deal.
All right, we'll take a break here, really quick one, and we'll come back and we'll dissect the playoff path for Kansas City, what it stands like now, and who their upcoming opponents are on the way to that potential playoff berth. This is the Locked On Chiefs Squad Show. We'll be right back. All right, final segment here on the Chiefs Squad Show. Aaron Ladd, J.C. Pearson, Chris Clark, and Darren Smith after a 22-19 loss for the Kansas City Chiefs. They are currently 9th in the AFC as of this taping, looking up at the Houston Texans in the 8th spot and the Jacksonville Jaguars in the 7th spot. Los Angeles, the Chargers, they dropped down to the 6th after that loss to Jacksonville. They're 7-4. Jags are 6-4. Kansas City and Houston are 5-5, but my goodness, there are some tiebreakers here behind them. So really, I'm going to steal a phrase from Darren Smith. You got to win out. You got to win out the rest of the way and really hope for some good luck. The upcoming opponents for Kansas City are as follows. They are at home against the Colts. They go on the road to play the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving. Then they play the Texans, the Chargers, the Titans, the Broncos, and the Raiders to finish out the rest of the way. I'll kick this off, and I want to hear what y'all have to say in the comments as the panel here. What do we think? How do we think this finishes out? It's obviously a wild card team for Kansas City if they find their way in. JC, you start us off. Where do you see Kansas City fit in this playoff picture?
Well, I mean, they can still get in, but, for them, they shouldn't be thinking about the playoffs right now. You just got to get a win. Everything's got to be about week to week. And this coming week is Indianapolis. Who cares where we're at? Who cares who did what? They can't worry about that. They have to win. Like you said, they really need to win out. So we just they just have to go week to week, forget about any other scenarios, anything. Don't even talk about it. Don't even think about it, because if you don't win, it's really probably not going to matter. So you have to put 100% of your focus in each week on the team you're playing. And that's it. Can't look past anybody. Can't look down the line. Can't look whatever, because if you don't win, it really doesn't matter. So you got to win every week.
Darren, what do you think? This is a large change of tune because last week on the way in, we were making our predictions, and I'm like, I don't know about this Broncos game. And JC and Darren are talking me down. Whoa, 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 whoa. Now, 1 week later, we talk about taking it week by week. What changed, Darren?
I mean, first of all, I'm like a good politician. I have to change when I see new facts, new information. So that's what a good person, that's what a smart person does. You change with the information that you get. And look, Kansas City somehow, some way, they're 3.5-point favorites at home against the Colts next week. I don't know because
Vegas,
you got
that counts as your Vegas mention.
Exactly. But with Jonathan Taylor coming in after running 200 plus yards. I don't know, man. Look, this is the first time I can confidently say that I think Patrick Mahomes might be joining me on Radio Row in San Francisco instead of preparing for the game, because the way that they're playing and the way that they're not making adjustments and look, I kept trying to tell everybody they were not going to trade for Breece Hall. Even if they had Breece Hall today, do you think they'd have been running? I mean, they still would have looked like they look today. So, if they were going to make some changes or bring some people in, it definitely wasn't going to be at running back. So I'm like JC, go week to week. Don't worry about it. If you make the playoffs, I'm confident enough that they can go on the road and get things done. But right now, hey man, I got to make sure that they can look. This could be the first time. This could be the first time coming out of next Sunday's game. This could be the first time in Patrick's career where he's under 500 this late into a season.
Yeah,
Chris,
I don't know,
man. Playoff team? Chris, is this a playoff team?
No,
it's Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, it was Jekyll and Hyde in this game. Patrick Mahomes started the game, looked pretty good. I mean, yeah, he missed a couple of deep shots, but at least he was hitting the players. It wasn't getting touchdowns, but they were moving the ball. They were being effective to an extent, and then all of a sudden he comes out and he throws that horrible pick. And it's not like he threw just that one pick. Like, he threw another one that got called back and then threw that bad pick. And if it's not for Tyquan Thornton, that could have ended up being a touchdown and completely changes how the second half of this game looks. So, you look at how this is going to play out and whatnot. I think that they can be a playoff team, but what team is going to show up? Like, everybody was talking about in the broadcast booth today that Kansas City was treating this like a playoff game. I get that. I think that makes sense. But if that's the case, it doesn't matter if you make the playoffs, if this is how you're going to play, because you're going to lose probably the first game.
Well, we talked about how they played against Buffalo, and we talked about today. And if somebody just tuned into the show and they didn't see the game and didn't see the score, they would think that they got blown out by, 3 touchdowns. They lost by a last-second field goal as bad as they played. So yes, a loss is a loss, no doubt. But can they be? Yeah, absolutely, they can be. A play here, a play there. They can be, yes. So I mean, we're talking like they, are the Raiders. They're not, just like with Buffalo, they lost by, a touchdown as bad as they played. So yes, they are L's, they are losses, they are playing bad. But the thing about that is, it's one thing to lose when you play your best, and another thing to lose when you're not playing well. And they have a lot of room to improve, as we know, and they're not that far behind. So, I don't know, there is no magic switch, but they do have the ability.
Darren, I want to push back on one thing, because you said you're confident they could win on the road. They have one road win this year, and it's against the Giants.
Well, I'm talking about in the playoffs. I mean, I'm saying they've proven they can win on the road, but I want to push back something on JC. JC, what is the famous quote that Bill Parcells is known for?
Hell, I know Bill Parcells ain't coaching as far as I.
Okay. You are what your record says you are.
Okay, yeah, no doubt.
So whether they lost by 3 or lost by 7, as you said, they still lost. But what
I said, an L is an L. But the way they lost, it's one thing to lose and get thoroughly beaten down, and that you're not as good as the team that beat you, or lose the way they lost, where it's a loss, but we know that we didn't play well. We didn't play our best. Can we get back to playing the way that they played in the past? If they can get back to that, whatever that is, they're as good as anybody in the AFC still. We know that, but they haven't done that.
That's my point. Because again, when you have 4 losses coming to this game, now you have a 5th loss. You would think as a coaching staff, you go back and see the mistakes, whatever that you do, try to get better, try to improve on the following week. Again, coming out of that Buffalo game, Andy Reid said that they should have done a better job of running the football. What did they do in this game? They try to start running the football, but then putting these and other things put them in a position where they can't run the football anymore. So again, it falls back to coaching, falls back to execution, a lot of different things. So you're not even learning the lessons that you said that you learned from the previous losses.
Well, I think a lot of that is the penalties and getting behind the chains.
Well, I put it like this. Yeah. Don't improve on it this week with Jonathan Taylor coming in next week, and then there'll be 5 or 6. We'll be having the same conversation next week.
I don't know if the score ever put them behind not running the football. They never trailed by more than 3 points.
No.
They just can't run the football.
They don't. No, it's not they can't. They choose not to.
Thank you.
He wants to say they don't. That. He wants to believe that they can't.
I don't think they can. I don't think they can. What's their best successful game running the football this year?
Kareem Hunt was okay, but Kareem Hunt had 4.9 yards per carry in the first half. He ended the day at 4.2. That's being effective running the football.
That's winning runing football.
They were tied 6-6.5. They were tied 6-6.5. I don't know, man. It's looking very iffy. We are final 5 minutes here on the Chiefs Squad Show. Let's get our final. Let's actually look ahead to the Colts game, because this is going to be our last time talking to Chris until that game is over. At 3.5 is what you said. The Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites, Darren. If it's my early number and I got my last $20, we like to do that on this platform. I'm putting my last $20 on Indiana Jones and the Colts right now.
I would too.
Can't say I blame you on that one. I think when you look at this, it's going to be a question, though. Can Kansas City's defense do what they did against the Denver Broncos? Because I still don't believe in Daniel Jones. Yes, Jonathan Taylor is a phenomenal back. I fully grant that. But if they can make Daniel Jones look like the Daniel Jones that has played in New York at times, that's a different ball game completely. And this offense has the ability to score points. It's a question of, can they be consistent, and can their playmakers show up on a regular basis? If their playmakers show up on a regular basis, if Rashee Rice catches 2 more passes in this game, Kansas City maybe win this game, or at least send it to overtime, because that's probably going to be a long field goal at the end of the first half, and Rice dropped 2 of them that he should have had.
I'm with you, Chris, and them 2 haters, we'll be able to talk to them next weekend. But yeah, I'm still riding with the guys, man. At home, I think this defense is gonna rise up and play well. They played well for the most part today. 1 big play at the end of the game, it happens. But I think they're gonna play well. The question is, how well is the offense gonna play? Are they gonna be able to put points on the board? Because if we get out in front of these guys, well, now they can't run the ball as much as maybe they want to either, because they're going to have to be playing catch up. So, if we can get up early on these guys, I feel good.
So I'm laughing because JC's calling us haters, but he's saying the same thing. Look, it ain't the defense I'm too concerned about. It's the offense, and the offense being consistent. Okay, that's first and foremost. And first of all, you talk about if we can get up. Well, knowing the Chiefs, the Colts are going to have the ball first. And so it's going to be dependent upon the defense, get some pressure on Danny Dimes or Daniel Jones or whatever, and keep Jonathan Taylor at the end zone. Now, if he gets in the end zone, now the Chiefs are playing from behind. So what's that going to mean? They're going to start throwing the football right off the bat. And if they have these incomplete passes, going to stop the clock, give them the ball back.
A lot of ifs right there. You know what they say about a lot of ifs. You know what they say about ifs.
You know what? Patrick Mahomes threw the ball 45 times, had 16 incompletions. So it was a lot of drop passes, a lot of incompletions, and a lot of times that the clock was stopped tonight. And it didn't do the Chiefs any favor, did it?
Well, they play much better at home, and we'll talk about it next Sunday. But if was a fifth,
We'd all be drunk.
Thank
We appreciate y'all joining us here.
I will say this, though. The Chiefs have 2 losses so far this season when their defense held a team to under 23 points. You're telling me that a Patrick Mahomes-led offense is going to score less than 24 points in most of your games, they're going to lose. You need to score more points. You have all the weapons you have. This offense has to play better. It just comes down to that. You cannot put, like, this isn't on their defense. Their defense had some issues. Don't get me wrong. You can't allow a 3rd and 15 conversion in that situation. Fully grant that. But the defense held a Broncos team that has been very good this year to 22 points.
5 field goals.
Yeah,
Right.
and 5. Yeah, there you go. And
Yeah.
you're also looking at a situation where another game this year, they allowed the defense or the offense to score 20 points and they still lost. So you're in a situation where you've lost 2 of your games this year when you've scored because you've scored less than your opponent and they're not scoring more than 23 points. That should be unacceptable for a Patrick Mahomes-led offense with these weapons that he has.
Well, on that note, we will see y'all in the midweek. The Chief Squad Show records Wednesdays wherever you find your podcast and on YouTube. We appreciate y'all joining us. Until next time,